Okay, I think finally the recording is now working. Right, so going back to what we were discussing previously, we learn selection tools from Photoshop, right? Now, if you notice Photoshop on the toolbox here, there are all sorts of selection tools available, starting from this one. For simple stuff, you can use a rectangular marquee tool or elliptical marquee tool, rows and columns and things like that. We can use some of those things. Now, for example, in this photo, we have this salad label, which is suitable for rectangular or circular selection because it's a perfect circle. But it might not be suitable for this tomato because it's not a perfect circle, you see, right? So out of this, only the elliptical marquee can be used for this project. But if you come down, this one, now there are two selectors here. One is called the magic wand, the other one is called the quick selection tool. So these two again are selection tools. On the left, you have another one called the lasso tool. And there is also a polygonal lasso tool and also magnetic lasso tool. Now, those three again we can use to select some tools. So these are the tools we will be using today to select object out of our screen. In fact, so this is the one before editing. Now I have shared the files on Google Drive. So if you look at the completed project, it should look like this. So here's the starting, here's the ending. I shared both with you. So we will find out how to do this image using these elements on the screen. Look at the carrot here, there is a gray background. And the bell pepper also, there is some background, some shadow and whatever. And then we have this lettuce with very weird edges. So all that is gone in the end picture. You see the bell pepper has no background, so is a carrot, no background. And the lettuce is very nicely cut using all those edges as well. And if you notice very carefully, the salad label is green. In here it is pinkish, right? Purple. And here the color is changed, right? So couple of things we need to figure out. And also, if you look at the completed photo, all the layers are there, right? Including their effects are there, right? For example, let's look at the logo. Okay, here's a logo, right? So the logo, if you click on that, okay, so there is a drop shadow in the logo. And there is a, okay, cancel that, right? There is a drop shadow in the logo. If you click on the effects, then the entire background is here. So, right, here we go. So this is without any effect. This is the whole thing after, and each layer is adding a sort of a background effects here. You notice here, it's turning on and off, right? So this is the completed version, right? So we are going to get here by starting here. Okay, so let's start with the most simple one, which is our salad label. So we are going to use the elliptical marquee tool. So we need to first zoom a little bit so that we can see it clearly. All right, and then let's use the elliptical selector. Now, by the way, apart from the mouse, I'm also using the shift key and the space bar. Space bar to move my selection, shift key to make sure that I have a perfect circle. Now, if I don't use shift key, it goes like this. See, it's not a perfect circle. See, so if I use the shift key, I get a perfect circle. And now if I want to move that circle to left, right, top, bottom, I use the space bar. So here I am, I'm moving the space bar. So normally what I do is I will try to map it to an edge, left or top or something like that, and then try to use the shift key again and move this a little bit up and down. And let's see, it's a very sort of a very precise movement is required. So you need to be extremely familiar with your mouse and the keyboard. There you go. So I hope I selected it properly. I don't know, it might not be. So I can check by going to the zoom and seeing, oh no, you see, there is some residue here. So I have not perfectly selected. So this side looks like okay. But let's see. At the bottom, yeah, bottom is also okay. Yeah, I might need a new selection. So let me zoom out and let's try again. Now, if you want to get rid of the selection, you click Control D, D for dog. So that is to get rid of the selection, right? Deselect, Control D. There you go. Again, go back to the selector, use the circle and then the space bar. And just play around, move it here and there, up and down, until you think you got the perfect circle. So, not really. So, okay. I tried with the top and then the left. You see, I'm going left and top. So then I will be somewhere like this, and then it's easier for me to make it smaller and then take my hand away from the mouse. So now I have selected the circle. So once you do that, you need to make a copy of it. So make a copy and then go back to the edit and where is copy? Okay, copy and paste. Right, now if I turn off my background, here I am with my label. So it's good to label them as well, so that you know what you have in that layer. And it's also a very good time to save your project. Otherwise, in case something goes wrong, you lose everything. So just save it under your name. All right. So now I have selected, or rather I have removed the salad label. I didn't remove it, actually. I made a copy of that from the original. Okay, good. Let's move on to the next item, the tomato. This is too big, so let me zoom out a little bit using the zoom tool with the ALT key so that I can zoom out. Okay, now I'm going to use a different tool this time. So if you go to the second from the right, at the bottom, there is one called quick selection tool here. So the quick selection tool quickly selects something as it says. So it gives you this circle here, little circle. All you need to do is go inside, in fact, go to the edge of the object you want to select and click and drag like this. There. Within very 1 second drag, it selected the tomato nicely. Right? Let me try again. So I do Control D to get rid of the selection. I go click here and a bit of painting. Just one step down and the whole tomato is selected. So same thing, I go to edit, copy, edit, paste. There I have my new layer. So I call it tomato. Now you can verify whether it is properly removed by turning off the background. Yeah, look like it's perfect. Okay, it is perfect. Now third one, this olives is also can be selected using our elliptical selector. So something like this, right? So I don't need a shift key, I just need a space bar. So again here, you need to fit it to the top and then to maybe to the left, and then from the right hand side, come inside. Okay. of course, these things require practice. So please practice yourself. Now I did that now. What I do is I try to fix it, or rather touch the left and the top first. And I have a larger selector and I try to fit the top and the left and then start making it smaller. So that way I can get the perfect selection. So by the way, make sure that you're on the right layer, right? Otherwise you can't copy anything because these layers, they are blank. Okay, so go back to edit, copy and paste. Right, so we have it. Let's rename that as olives. Again, turn off the background and see, right, perfectly it has come. Then let's go up to the lettuce. Okay, now you notice, although the shape is looking odd, we were able to select most of it without much trouble. Yeah, so we're going to do the same thing to the lettuce as well. I use a couple of things here. One is the okay, in this case I'm going to use the rectangular selection, this one, right, like this. So I select the whole sort of area here, right, and then after doing that I will go to the magic wand. Okay, oh, I'm not in the right layer. Right, so that's what I'm going to do. So first go to the rectangular and select the whole thing a bit of outside as well. So now we have a bigger rectangular now. Step number one. Step number two, go to the magic wand. But also, before you do anything, make sure on the top there are few selectors available or other actions available. So make sure you select subtract from selection, because if you look at the first one, it is new selection, and then it says add to selection. Second one says subtract from selection. Last one, or the fourth one, says intersection with selection. So we are going to use the third one, subtract. So when you select it, you see there's a little minus sign right under the magic wand. So if you use, for example, this one, you will see a plus sign. Yeah, so we need this third one, which is the subtraction. So now I'm going to click here. Right, now see what happened. It is properly selecting the lettuce with the beautiful outline, or rather all the edges are nicely selected. Let me show you again. So go to the rectangle, draw a rectangle around it, then go to the magic wand, make sure subtraction is selected, and then come and click on the white area. There you have it. Right, edit, copy, edit, paste. So you call it lettuce. All right, turn off the background. Yes, that's a perfect copy. Okay, so going back to our completed version, so we can start moving our stuff, right? So we at least have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 elements we can move. So the lettuce comes to the left hand of the cutting blade. So I'll use the move tool. So now see, because I've renamed it, I have very easy to move things. Now here's the lettuce. Now remember, we made a copy, we didn't cut it. So that's why the copy is there, right? So I'm not going to do anything to the cutting board because I'm bringing stuff there. Right, so where do I put the tomato? Okay, tomato goes to, where's the tomato? Okay, so tomato goes somewhere here, right? Something like that. And the olive goes to the opposite. So olives here, olive goes somewhere here. Okay. What else? The label. The label, there is a little change in the label, because if you notice, label has 3 copies. Okay. And also the color is changed. So we'll get to that later. Oh no, we can look at that also now. So if I zoom it a little bit to the label, right? Now here on the top, we have certain ways to join our image with the rest of the images underneath. For example, right now by default it is normal, yeah. So if I say multiply, or let's say color burn, linear, darker color, lighten, screen, you get different sort of effects here, right? Hard light, vivid light, pen, there you go, difference, exclusion, right? So I'll go with the difference. Isn't that the color? Yeah, that's the color. Okay, so that's the color. But just that they have 3 copies. So we can also make 3 copies. So how do you make 3 copies? Well, you could drag this guy into the make copy layer like this, and then move it. Right? So now when you put one on top of the other, you see there is some change going on. So try exclusion, subtract, divide. No, I'm going to leave it as it is, but we'll come back to that later. So I'll leave it like this. And also, if you notice, different sizes, isn't it? So we need to make the sizes also differ. So here label, let's call it label. Let's call that label 1, and this guy label 2. Right. So label 2 is the one at the bottom. And I want to make it larger. So if you go to image, edit, it's transform or free transform. So let's say free transform, that is Control T. That gives you these control points. So you could use the shift key and make it, no, actually not shift key. In my case, no shift key. So you can see resize the way you want it. So I'll make it a little larger and I'll just leave it there. So if you're happy with it, just do a double click or press enter. It'll take that size. Okay, so far so good. So we have 4 elements here. Now let's get to the difficult ones. So I'll start with the bell pepper. Okay, so let's again zoom into the bell pepper. Go a bit closer because there's a lot of work to be done here. All right, and this takes a lot of time and a lot of patience as well. So first, make sure that you select your background, your project is saved, and then this time I'm going to use a different tool here. It's called the magnetic lasso tool. All right, now lasso is like where you draw around something and then you select it. Magnetic lasso tool has a magnet attached to it, meaning you just start moving. Photoshop will automatically try to attach itself into the closest sort of a color difference, or in this case the object. So I'll start with a simple edge and then see whether I can move it around. So let me go to the tool and perhaps I'll start with maybe a easier corner, right? So I'll start maybe here. So I click here, right? Now see, there's a little dot now. Now all I have to do is move my mouse around the edge of the object. Now see, when I move, it is automatically capturing the edge. I'm not clicking, I'm just moving, okay? I'm just moving. And Photoshop does most of the work. So it is detecting the differences of the foreground and the background. Now there, if you notice, my corner there may not be perfect. That's all right. Right? We will adjust it. We will use the eraser to erase there are many other tools to correct these errors, but for now, let's go through the outline of this object. So if you can't do it from the first instance, that's all. It's okay. Try again. Right, here I am. Right, so far so good. Okay. Right, and all right, I can click now. So there you go. It was not so easy, but then we did it. Okay. But like I said, it's not perfect because say this corner, maybe somewhere here might not be perfect. That's okay. So I'm gonna do a copy paste again, just like before. Paste, and so that's bell pepper. Right. Now when I turn this off, I can see the bell pepper now. Perfect condition. Now let's go into the edge here. I don't know whether it's visible for you. There is some white residue here. It might not be very visible because the transparency and the white, they all look the same. So in order to correct it, I'll have a background that is very visible. Now in this case, I don't have red in this picture. So perhaps red, maybe green, maybe blue, usually a primary color would be nice. So what I do is I click on the background and I add a new layer here. Okay. And then I make sure I select a color from my color palette. And then I can use the paint bucket and just paint it. There you go. When I do that, I notice I have errors in few places. Now, for example, here I have some issues. Here I have some issues. You see, when I apply this background only, I notice there are issues like that. Okay. So all I need to do now is to zoom in further. Let's zoom in here. Oh, I see. There are a lot of issues here, right? I can use the eraser in this case. Where is the eraser? Okay. So here's the eraser, right? So eraser again has multiple erasers. Erase background eraser, various magic eraser. But I'm going to use a standard eraser now. And when I do that, you notice I get a circle. So again, I can use the square bracket key to make it smaller or larger, and make sure you're on the right layer, bell pepper layer, and then start erasing. There, you are erasing, right? So all the mistakes you made in the selection, you can fix it. So not to worry. So even in the edge. So again, I may have to go very small here. I need to get rid of this white there. Again here, if you notice, right? Good. So there was also a few things here. Okay. So let's erase further. I think it's okay now. All right. So it looks like the bell pepper is fine. Okay. Where we put the bell pepper? Somewhere in the middle of the board. Okay, so let's move that. So I use the move tool. The bell pepper goes somewhere here. Is it? Yes, somewhere there. Okay, good. Only thing remaining now is the carrot. Yeah. So let's zoom into the carrot and see how easy or difficult it is to cut the carrot. I suppose we can use the magnetic tool for the carrot as well. Although there are gray in between, and then this edge might be a difficult task. Yeah, but that's okay. Let's give it a shot and see. So I'm going to use the magnetic lasso again and see whether I can have any luck with that. I should zoom out a bit, so I need to see the entire carrot. Okay, perhaps good. Right, so where is my magic wand? Okay, here we go. Make sure you select your background properly. And then let's start at an easy place. So maybe here. And then see whether it is doing the same magic we did to the bell pepper. All right, so I go through the edge. Not really. So if you notice here, it didn't work, right? That's okay. So let's go through this whole thing. All right, I'm sort of added things to it, but you notice I have issues with the head and the tail. Yeah, like here, I have issues. See, it's not selected. Now I can use another tool, actually, the lasso tool. In this case, remember the top ones, the addition, added to the selection, subtract to selection. So we have the same thing here. I want to add few things to my already selected area. So I'm going to select the second one. And now I start drawing on the outside of this. Let's see. Okay, so it didn't work properly out. But you need to make sure you cover every area that you want to take. And there you go. Notice that? Now, of course, we can use the eraser later to get rid of the things we don't need, but we need to make sure the things we need are selected. Now, here's another example. So I go through this whole thing like this. Okay. I can, of course, correct it later. I noticed there is some stuff here as well. There. So whatever area you want, just draw it around and you get it. I suppose I'm okay now, so I go to copy paste. Copy and paste. So I call it the carrot. And let me take it above the red. And now we can see and delete whatever we don't need. But then again, you notice the red might not be the best color in this case because this is orange and we can hardly see anything happening there. So I'm going to change the color to maybe blue or something, right? So yeah, okay. And then again, use the paint bucket, drop it there. Right, now it's better. Visibility is much better, okay? Right, so all I have to do is now use the eraser. So again, oh, sorry, wrong layer. Make sure you're on the carrot layer and then you erase what is not required. There you go. So go to the edge. Perhaps you might not need all this. Depend on the detail you want, right? So you might not want the detail, you want to just get it at this point here, but then, well, for the benefit of the detail-oriented person, I am keeping it there. So, okay. Well, looks like, yeah, oh, okay, here's some other stuff. Okay. So far, so good. Right. Let me turn off the blue layer and let's figure out where to put the carrot. Okay, carrot goes somewhere here, but it's also rotated, isn't it? So let's get the move tool. And here we go. And okay, how do we rotate it? There you go. I use the free transformation tool to move the stuff there. So looks like we are okay with the movements, just that we need few things to do. We need to crop the image. There's also some background shadow here. And then there are 3 copies of this. We only have 2 copies. Of course, all that is not so difficult. So the difficult ones, the difficult areas where we were trying to select objects is all done. Okay. Right. So I'll start with the cropping the image. We did this previously, right? Cropping. I also suggest you keep the delete cropped pixel off so that later if you want to get back to this, you can always come. So let me come to about edge here and also something here, or maybe here also I can crop a little bit. Right, done. I do a double click. There you go. We have our object similar to this. Similar. Right. So let's now start adding the other elements, like for example, the drop shadows. So I'll start with, you can start with anything. Maybe we'll start with the tomato. Okay. Now, if you notice, there's an FX down here. Right. You click it. This is like the one we use for non-destructive editing. Remember, right? Those are adjustment layers. Now here we give an effect to this. The advantage is they are again non-destructive. You can edit, turn off, turn on, and do various things. So let me go to the last one here, drop shadow. Right, you get this additional window here. So let me move it aside so that I can see what is happening here. So drop shadow is what I'm trying to apply. And here you can play with the size. You notice there's some shadow here happening. Spread, right? Size, let's reduce the size. And the distance, see where you want the shadow. All that you can adjust here. We don't want a massive shadow. We need a subtle kind of shadow so that it has the feeling of elevated, right? Okay, you don't see the Photoshop full screen. Do you see the Photoshop, the entire screen? Let me stop the sharing and share again. This is the entire Photoshop window. Do you see it now? I'm not getting any feedback, so I assume that you can see the entire Photoshop. Okay. So basically what I did was I added a background. Actually, right, okay, good, can see. So basically I added a special effect to the tomato. So you notice here, there is FX now, and there is an eye here. So this eye is there for us to turn it on and turn it off. In fact, we can add more than one effect also, and then see what is going on. Now, another advantage here is that you can copy this effect. I do a right click. It says copy layer style, right? You can copy this and then go to let's say olives and then paste it. There you have the exact same shadow that you applied to the tomato, now applied to olive, right? So similarly, once you are okay with one effect, you can go on and start adding it to everything else. So let's say paste layer to lettuce. Yes. See, it's very subtle, is it? In fact, so subtle than here also, right? So the effect should be not very clear, as in it should be very subtle. So people won't see it as an effect. Yeah. So we need to put that to the bell pepper as well. Otherwise, it looks like just cut pasted from a book or something, right? Okay, then that looks pretty good. So let me minimize these guys and also add that to the carrot. Okay, now it looks pretty realistic, isn't it? Right, so far so good. Few more things to do, like adding another label and make it larger than the second one and all that. I will leave it for you to do. Right? So here we are, learning Photoshop selector tools. I also shared another YouTube link for your further studies. So please go through that video. It's an excellent video tutorial. In fact, it is a collection of video tutorials from Adobe. So if you go through few of those, you will master everything that I did here today. And this PSD file, like I said, is available in your Google Drive. If you cannot access it, let me know, so you can practice it yourself. So this is your first activity in Photoshop. Okay, your first activity. Right. From here, let's move on to our next activity. Okay, so let me get that document first. Okay, I hope you can see the PDF here. Now, basically, what we're going to do is to make this texture, right? You notice how natural looking it is. These are stones, and it's completely created using Photoshop, right? Completely created using Photoshop. So it looks very natural. So if you go down, all the steps are there. By the way, this document again is shared on Google Drive. You can have a look at that. So we start off with some dots, right? So let me quickly go through the document, and we start drawing big dots, small dots, in between dots and whatnot. So we draw a lot of dots. Then we are using a certain feature of Photoshop called liquify, as in adding liquid or make it liquefying whatever we have. So also please pay attention to the settings here. Yeah, settings here, and then only you will get the same sort of effect. So with the liquify, we can distort the circle. See, we can distort the circle. So we distort it further. So they have getting distorted from the circle into, you know, some weird objects here. Looks like stones now. And going further down, we make a copy. We copy of that layer. We name these layers. We duplicate these layers, and then we apply remember the blur filter, the Gaussian blur filter. We apply in there. Again, pay attention to the setting. So 3.5 is the setting, right down here. So when you do that, you get a little bit of depth there, a little bit of depth there, and we go further down. So we have layer styles now, and we also use a texture, just like what we did with the drop shadow with the carrots and whatnot here. We do the same thing. So we apply a certain built-in Photoshop texture here, and then it looks like this, right? And still there is no third dimension, as in it still doesn't look very realistic. They still look flat. So to bring in some dimension or depth to it, we add some highlights, you know, by painting white with a very soft brush. We paint sort of at the edge, top edge, right? Whites. Then we play with the mixing of the two layers using transparency. So we said now this is 100% 0% transparent, which means it shows everything. We bring it down to about 70% transparency. So we see very lightly. Now we can see a certain depth is now coming into play, isn't it? It looks a bit 3D now, or looks a little realistic than before. Then we also add some low lights. That is, at the bottom of the stone, we start adding black color, like here. We paint it in black. So the same thing, we play with the transparency, and we give 20% there, right? Now it looks really good. You see, it looks really, well, it looks realistic now. So that's how you make your stones look realistic. As you can see, we have created the whole thing using Photoshop, right? Rather than getting a photograph from somewhere. Now, where can we use it later? Well, here's an example where it is used. So we see through the text here, okay? And there's some grass in the background. You can also notice there's some drop shadow here, right? And looks very realistic. Drop shadow is there. There's also some outline there. So the whole sort of title now looks very realistic and very rich. Yeah, there's also certain colors at the edge here. We call it the vignette. We have added the vignette here. And the whole output at the end looks very, very real and very realistic and very rich. Okay, so let's start with this and see how we can get this done in Photoshop. All right, so I will run through the most of the effects, most of the steps here using Photoshop, but you will do it yourself. And also at the end of it, you need to submit this project. Don't submit today or this week. You will have one document where you will be adding each activity that I'm giving you, and then you will be uploading that one document. So that one document will have everything there. So let me show you that document. I've shared that also on the internet in your Google Drive. Let me get to that. Okay, so here is the document. Right, so I've shared this with you as well. So here's the document. So please make sure your full name is mentioned here. Your SLTC index number is mentioned here. Your batch, the course that you're following, and then the date you're submitting. Okay, so that's your cover page. So if you come down, starting from here, these are the activities we'll be doing. Number one being a greeting card. We haven't done that yet. Number two is a stone texture that we are going to do today. Then number three will be family photo correction. We have not done that yet. Then vector fish. When you learn Illustrator, we will be doing some design. So that comes here. And then also another one called RSS icon we will be doing. And the last one from Illustrator is a paperclip. So these are the projects we are doing throughout this course. Okay. Now if you notice, there are two things required here. One is your final project, your final JPEG. For example, in this case, your final stones texture after you complete, you take a photo of that and you paste it here. And number two is your Photoshop screenshot. Now, when you are working on it, your layers and everything else. So basically, it's a evidence to show that you have actually done this. So if you can take a screenshot of Photoshop along with your layers on, it shows that you worked on this project. So two screenshots are required. One is the final artwork and then the Photoshop screenshot. Okay. So I've shared this document with you. So you can in fact paste that to the second activity here. All right. Now this is also something that we can actually work on. This is your homework. So a homework can be a greeting card for the event. Now, I think this month we are having Vesak. You can either use Vesak or you can use a very relevant local version, or the current version is Corona. Any topic you prefer, or a card for your parents, your friend, anything. Okay. So you can, of course, go to the internet for some inspiration. Let's say Vesak greeting card, right? Here are some cards, you see, as an example. You can use some element from anywhere you like, add some quote if you like it. For example, this one, right? So this is coming with Shutterstock. So they've used some flowers and some lights here, and then added some text and whatnot. Yeah. So here they've taken a photograph of a card. So we are going to build it. So not like that. Now here it's a drawing. Okay. So you can have any language you want, Sinhala, Tamil, English, anything you want. It can be very Sri Lankan version, you see. So I did. Or even Corona. Corona. Can't be a greeting card, I don't know. Oh, this is the Corona beer. No, not this. Okay, so here we have. Oh, very appropriate. So it says next year you'll get a real hug. Happy birthday, because we can't hug anyone nowadays. So you can be very creative. You can be very creative. Right. So pick up something. It can be very creative and any topic you wish. New Year, Vesak, Corona, birthday, anything, anniversary, whatever. Make a beautiful creative card and then come and paste it in the document here. Okay, so that's your homework. Don't email me yet. Just keep it with you, and at the end of this unit, you will email me everything together as one document. All right. So what you do is you go to File and download this. Download as a Microsoft Word document, and then edit that document. You can paste it there. Okay, so let's get back to Photoshop again. Right, so here is our Photoshop. I will close all. Make sure you close it, otherwise big problem. So, all right, so I'm going to go and start a new document. Where is it? All right, I click on new document. I'm waiting for it to start. I have this, and according to the document, it should be 550 and 300 is the size, and the resolution they say is about 72 dpi. Well, we don't want high resolution, so create. Right, so here we have the document. And then you need to set the background to black and the foreground to white. So you can easily do that by going to edit and select fill. In here you say black and okay, there you have black. And then make sure your foreground color is white. And we are now going to use the drawing tool, the ellipse tool. Okay, so just use the shift key and start drawing your circles any size you want. And it doesn't have to be inside only, so it can be outside, anywhere you want. You might want to use your space bar so that you can move it into places. No problem at all. We are trying to draw perfect circles so that we can move them around later. And if you're not very happy with drawing directly, you can have a new layer and then draw a circle here, right? Then draw a circle here, and then use the move tool and move the circle anywhere you want, right? That also is possible. And once you're happy with it, you can go here and say flatten image. Flatten will basically merge everything, or merge image. Yeah, that is also possible. I'm going to draw anyway using the mouse. I'm going to draw it anyway. So okay, don't worry, don't think that it has to be perfect drawing. No problem at all. Can be a simple one also. But make sure you fill the whole area. That's important. Yeah, the document I shared, I think in Moodle, yes. There is a link to the Google Doc, so it's not shared as a document, it is shared as a link. You need lots of circles actually. Right, so yeah, you can draw some more. Let me go to the next step. Okay, the next step is where you use the liquify tool. So where is the liquify tool? Well, it's under filters, right? If you notice here, there is something called liquify. Okay, so let's go there, liquify. It will give us a preview of, or rather a different window where we can see the liquefaction happen. I don't know whether you can see it because it is on top of another window. Let's see whether I can share that with you. Right. So here's the liquefaction tool, and it gives you a place to play around. And we use the first tool up there. It's called the forward warp. We're basically warping things. So if you click something and drag, you see things can change any way you wish. I don't know whether you can see this. Can you? Make sure you distort the circle so it shouldn't look like circles. If you're done with it, you should have it there. All right, good. So that is not the perfect way. I also see triangular stuff. Well, you can always go back and if you're not happy, liquefy further. Okay, so that looks like it. And of course, you can adjust the size and the pressure and all that you can adjust. So I'm going to leave it like that. Okay. And in fact, you need to do it so your edges are very, very tiny. Right now, we have more soil here than the rock. So you can do that. And I'm going to make a copy of this. I'll call it stone. Okay. Or not really, I need to make a copy of that. Okay, I have a stone copy. So let's call that the shadow. Okay. Oops. Shadow. Right. And to the shadow, we are going to apply a blur, a Gaussian blur. So I go to filter, under blur, there is something called the Gaussian blur. And we need to apply about 3.5. Okay. So there is preview available. Yes, without, with and without. Okay. So I have two layers now. Here's the Gaussian layer and here's the stone layer. And I go back to my stone layer. And there I apply some effects using the FX. First being colored overlay. Right? Now this should be brownish, so I need to pick up the brown color. So right now it's gray, so I go to somewhere down here, maybe some dark brown color. Okay, and then oh, I can't see it because of the top layer here. All right, let's double click here. It's not no, it should say multiply. Otherwise, I will not be able to see my stone texture through it. And also play with opacity. I don't know, depending on your choice, you can play with the opacity. Once you do that, also go to the pattern overlay. We also need a pattern. In fact, you can have various textures here. Play with some textures. That also, you change the blending mode to multiply and choose appropriate texture. Okay, maybe this looks like all right. It says yellow mumps. About this guy. I like this guy. Okay. Again, you can scale it up and down. You see, make it smaller, larger, all that. I'll leave it somewhere there. Right. So we applied two effects. One is the color overlay, and the other is the pattern overlay. So once you do that, when you apply that, yeah, looks okay. Now the shadow I turned off, so make sure that is also given some blending mode. So I'll try multiply. Yeah, so that gives the soft edge, isn't it? It gives a bit of a soft edge. Now, so far so good. So, but now I need the highlights. So I need on top of this I need a new layer. So I'm going to call it highlights. HIGH highlights, right? And I need a black background here. So go to edit, fill, and black. So there's black background there. On the black background, I'm going to draw using the white. Okay, so I'm going to draw using the white. So I need a white brush here, right? White, and oops, I need a brush. So here's a brush. And I also need a very soft brush. So let's say something like this will do, right? And I need to draw on the highlights layer. Now, right now I can't see anything. So let's do a, let's say, need a bit of, okay, let's use the opacity itself, right? So that I can see through. I need a smaller brush perhaps. And you just start drawing up here, okay? So let's play with the opacity. There you are, okay? So on the outside of the stone, just draw some highlights. Well, it doesn't have to be very accurate, just draw as you see fit. There. Okay, so the of course you can play with your highlights, opacity, all that. Okay. So I was working on the highlights. So, okay, you can also work on the blending mode. I've used multiply. So try different things. Let's say lighten, screen, color dodge, and then of course couple that with opacity, right? Let's say lighten and then opacity. All right. So that gives a little highlight there. So the next is to play with the low lights. Now there you need another layer, but this time that layer has to be white. So again, go to fill with white. Okay. And then you need to start drawing with the black pen. So I switch the colors to black here, and also make this semi-transparent so that I can see through, and then start drawing with my black, right? So there you need to start drawing in black. Of course, you can preview while you draw this. So now for that, you need to have a blending mode. So we'll have a soft light, this as well. There you are. If you don't like it, well, you can, it doesn't look very realistic though. So you can always play with your highlights and lowlights. Now I notice my highlights here has extra white, so I should have not done that. Of course, all you need to do is go to highlight whatever the layer you want to erase, use the eraser, and come erase it like this. There, only that part is getting erased, you see. If there's some spillover, you can always use the eraser. See, you can erase that. So extra spillovers are not there. Like this, for example. So use all the tools available and be creative. Okay, be creative. Get to view it on screen. All right, that's much better. So, like I said, do a bit of repairing and see whether you're getting the same thing. Now, see, I haven't used the same texture. That's why there are big patches like this. I also didn't use so many circles, so that's why there are a lot of blacks here. So this is not 100% accurate or 100% realistically looking. So of course you can go to town with it. You can do all sorts of effects and make sure that it looks similar to a real stone wall. Yeah. Okay, so we learned two things today. One, we learned the selection tools. Number two, we also learned, actually the selection tool was very comprehensive. There were so many ways of selecting things. My advice is, again, go to the video tutorials I shared with you. Number two, we also learned how to construct an image out of nothing, completely using Photoshop. So in this example, we learned how to make a stone texture completely using Photoshop tools. All right. Two things you need to do, two homework you need to do. One, you need to make a greeting card. Two, you need to make the stones texture.